not just everybody, Lord. We want to please you first of all. Please give us the wisdom and the knowledge to do it, and give us the strength, Father God, to stand there and be proud of it, and not bend in any way, Lord God. We love you. We praise you in your one precious name. I do pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right, a couple announcements before we get started. The workshop that was scheduled for today has been canceled. Mr. Jim Duncan, not Jim Austin, Texas, as was previously thought, is not going to be here today. He had some flights delayed because of the storms and all in Texas, and it's put him back, so he will not be here. We will try to do it again on December the 8th. In addition, an agenda item for road has been tabled due to the fact that there was some language that needed to be changed on the contract, and it will come back to us at the next meeting. So, moving forward, public comments. Up first, we have Mayor Merritt and Mayor Weiss from Inglis and Yankeetown, respectively. They have a couple of public comment items.
I'm here, Commissioners, requesting that when you go to legislature and request to switch to Swanee River Management District, that you leave Yankeetown where it is with Swiftmud. We have a lot of work ongoing with Swiftmud. Our river that we are on is within the lower Withlacoochee water basin, which is managed by Swiftmud, and I think it would cause a lot of issues if we went with Swanee River. I've looked at the consumptive use permitting consistency and also statewide environmental resource permitting. They're exactly the same no matter which district we're in, and we're more comfortable staying where we are, and with the ongoing work that we're doing, trying to revive the river, it would be a big mistake for us to change. I'm just requesting that you allow us to stay with Swiftmud.
And our commission has not been presented with this yet, but it will be my recommendation to our commission that we stay with the Swanee River, or the Swiftmud, because of the river. That's the lifeblood of our area. And to have Swiftmud be the caretakers of the Withlacoochee and us be in the Swanee River Water Management District, I think would cause us a lot of concern. And we also have, Inglis also has a grant pending application with Swiftmud. So,
what does that grant application pertain to?
The feasibility study for a sewer system, wastewater treatment, stormwater treatment system. So, I don't know yet what my commission will vote. It will be brought up to them this evening, but it will be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. The second item is we have received some funding from FDOT to put crepe myrtles down Highway 40, and it is our plan at this point to run those crepe myrtles over the next few years from Inglis 19 all the way to Gulf, and on the east side of town all the way to town limits. The problem is it's on county right-of-way. But those crepe myrtles will also have perennial peanuts planted between them, which will cut down on the amount of mowing that would have to be done in the English Yankeetown area, which would save the county money.
Well,
perennial
Perennial.
peanuts, they're not peanuts, they're perennial peanuts.
You're
It's a
talking about
ground
running
cover.
peanuts.
It's a
Ground
ground
cover.
cover.
Yeah.
It's a ground cover.
So aren't those like forage for game, especially deer?
Perennial peanuts?
You sure about that?
That is the recommendation of FDOT to put those.
Because some of this area we're talking about, most of it's in town, some of it's kind of rural. I'm just thinking that maybe we're
I'm
trying
My
to.
only thought is, are you doing on both sides or just one side of the road?
Both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides.
So would y'all
We're
be
trying-
willing to accept and maintain from the general store to the end of the highway on right away?
Haven't brought that up with our council yet.
It will be, this year, we're looking to only do from the curve on East 40, just past 19 where it curves, to Riverside Drive with the first year. That's what we're
Phase
looking.
one.
That's phase one.
So it'll be years to come.
It's
before you get
it's
to the
gonna
general
be
store.
a long time before we get to the general store even. But we're trying to beautify the area. We're trying to make it, that is the gateway to South Levy County. And we have the crepe myrtles all the way down 19 now. So,
Bruce,
Mr.
I
Mayor.
guess my only question or concern is what Commissioner Meeks just asked about maintenance, because, you know, in a couple of years, that crepe myrtle gonna be a crepe myrtle, and you know, so you're looking at putting something in the right of way that's gonna be kind of now start to intrude into the right of way and maybe create maybe a hazardous situation, or a situation just where we just gonna have to have maintenance because the trees are gonna, I don't know how big they get.
I can tell you how big, I got them all over my yard.
Okay, so if there's something that's gonna get big, we're gonna have a maintenance issue possibly in a couple of years, and that's something that definitely needs to be considered, because that right of way, although it's a big right of way, I think it's 80 feet, maybe 100, but although it's a big right of way, it's grown out a long way, so you don't have a ton of open space
and we
between the
will be
roadway
putting
and the.
these closer to the sidewalk, so that
Understand?
it'll be between the sidewalk and the road.
road, yeah.
Now
Mr.
that-
Mayor, let me ask you a question, this, and maybe Miss Annie, I need to ask you this. If y'all put them up, or we y'all on our right of way, and some idiot runs off and hits one, and has serious injury or death, who's gonna be held liable?
And the crepe myrtles, the reason the DOT uses the crepe myrtles just like on 19 is because if someone runs off and hits them, it's not the tree falls over basically. It's not like they're hitting an oak tree. So that's one of the reasons why they use the crepe myrtles instead of anything else. And that's why they
More
put,
bush than a tree.
yeah, it's more of a bush than a tree.
Makes sense. Well,
While they're young. Miss Tony?
Isn't there some kind of plant that'll suck up water, and that'll help you with your water problem? And maybe go straight up instead of, because in Cedar Key, there are 3 crepe myrtle trees, huge.
There's some in Tallahassee also. If you
And
don't trim them back, they can get into a tree size.
So we've had, I think, for about 5 years, or 6 years, the crepe myrtles on 19, and they haven't gotten that large. They've pretty much stayed, and when it comes to time to trim them back, I'm sure Ingles and Yankeetown's maintenance department can handle that if it gets to the point where they need to be.
well, my thought too is the mowing, how many are you planting, how far apart? The
25
mow-
25 feet apart, which is the same distance that they are on 19. And that's why we're putting down,
Ground cover.
the ground cover so there won't have to be mowing
Between.
between them. Which eliminates the county having to come down and mow those right of ways.
And I'm fine with that, I just, if we can figure out some kind of agreement where you maintain it.
We're saying that still needs an answer. So somebody's gonna be on the motorcycle, not just a car, and the old pumpkin head's gonna hit that tree, and I believe that tree's gonna be harder than that head.
Without details for a specific accident, I can't tell you
More
who'd be
money.
responsible. What I can say is the decision to plant them there would be protected, but you do need to maintain them. If they aren't maintained and it's done negligently, say the ground cover doesn't work, it grows county, it's in the county right away, if you allow them to go in there, unless somebody else is responsible for maintenance, it'll come back to the county.
Can we draw up an agreement that they agree to maintain it as long as they're there, and then once maintenance falls through, or we can remove them? I mean, that's going to incur a cost, but I believe that they're doing this in good faith, and they want to beautify their community. So, I mean, I have no problem with it. With that part, my concern is whenever we're having to mow around these things, and we're having to weed eat around them, and it becomes a nightmare for our already overworked mowing crew in the summertime whenever we have the rains. I don't have a problem with it, as long as they agree to the maintenance from wherever they plant them to wherever they end them. They take over the maintenance as long as y'all continue to maintain it. Mr. Freddie?
I think we're getting away from the intent of public comments. This is really an agenda item. If you're going to act on it today, or if we'd have known about it before, we could add some of these answers to these questions, like Commissioner has up there.
Okay.
So I'd say let's make this
We'll
an
bring it
agenda
back.
item for the next meeting or something, because it
Good
definitely
call.
is an agenda item on public comment.
Good call.
Thank you.
All right,
Freddie.
Ms. Gaither, do you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, have they considered using the master gardeners to help them with their plantings and everything?
We're responsible for the planning, so yes, we're gonna be using all citizens.
Good.
All right, so you'll make sure it gets on the next agenda. Thank you. Ms. Gaither?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to share with you that Critter Crusaders is having another dog wash at Tractor Supply in Chiefland this coming Saturday on the 7th, and it'll run from 9:30 in the morning till 3. So if you have a dirty little dog, please bring it. If you have a neighbor's dog that needs washing, please bring that. We appreciate any little dirty dog. So they don't want to wash cats though. I asked them, and they said no. But we'd appreciate the support.
Thank you, Ms. Gaither.
We have a public hearing. Nature Coast Business Development Council, Mr. David Bieklet.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
A couple things. The first is the request for the board to adopt ordinance 2015-10 for economic development, and this, of course, would establish the economic development fund that we have discussed numerous times leading up to today. A copy of the resolution was provided, or excuse me, ordinance was provided in the packets that you all have.
I need to read the ordinance title into the record. Ordinance number 2015-10, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Levy County, Florida, amending chapter 86 of the Levy County Code and creating a new division 3 of article 2, providing findings, providing for authorization and establishment of economic development incentive fund and program for new businesses, expansion to existing businesses, speculative construction and investment for job creation in the agricultural industry, providing for use of funds, providing for grant amounts, applications, awards, and agreements, providing for continuing performance, providing for board revocation of grant, providing for applicability, providing for severability, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Legislative.
Yes, sir.
I assume that we've already taken your recommendations because we've had multiple workshops and we've discussed it.
Yes,
Are there any questions from the commissioners? For David at this time?
I'll make a motion to be approved.
Hang on, we gotta have some public comment here. We don't need to swear him in, okay? We will now open the floor to, citizen comment, starting with row 1. Row 2. Mr. Witt.
I was just wondering, Dave, have you run this by any people at the state level? Do they think these incentives are going to be effective the way they're written? Have you done that, or?
The impetus, if you will, or the inspiration was actually one of the areas was state level. Looking at how we operate, how we do business, trying to be more competitive. These are the type of incentives that the state is trying to get others to adopt. You know, because your biggest competitors, North Carolina, Alabama, Texas, things of that nature, New York, they all have, you know, similar incentives, and so it's basically just trying to better position yourself to get yourself in more of these, you know, these leads, the hunt for these jobs and so forth. And actually, in continuation of that, one of the things that we're about to actually better address that, but the qualified target industry is the biggest state incentive program, and so these all pretty much connect to that QTI program. I should have mentioned that, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm kind of more lower key than normal. And I'm a Mets fan. Still a Mets fan, I must say.
I'll wear my orange tie for you.
Thank you, thank you.
Anybody else on row 2? Row 3? Row 4? Back wall? Mr. Lippman, welcome back. We're having a public hearing for the request to adopt ordinance 2015-10 for economic development by establishing an economic development fund. Do you have any comments or questions about it? If there are no further comments from the public, I will close the public comment section. Ms. Lilly, do you have a question?
How much money are we talking about?
I don't think there's a set number.
That's just it. Because for this specific course, we've been talking about 2 different programs, but for the EDF, really what they would have to do is they would approach the commission for improvements that have already basically, essentially, in most cases, have already been made or whatever. And so it's a matter of the commission just deciding to say yay or nay to this refund that we've been referring to it as, you know, rebate, credit, whatever. In certain situations, you might have a straight grant requirement, but again, that's, you know, taxes, fees, certain fees are going to have to have been paid, so it's not like we're going to be coming up with money out of thin air. So.
It's basically they're going to pay us and we're just going to pay them back.
Exactly, yeah. Yes. And actually, I will be getting into that more in this next item. So I might have lost it. This first one will be more detailed now.
Ms. Gaither?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Mr. Stevens. What did he say?
But what I had said, Ms. Gaither, is it's set up on a percent or dollar amount payback because they've already paid in. Once they make the application and the board agrees or not agrees to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? We will now close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Now.
I'm making a motion to pass ordinance.
Make a motion we pass, as in
Oh,
pass over it, or
Pass.
we adopt it?
Number 2015-10.
All right.
And while I'm doing that, I want to commend you, David, and Miss Annie, for the job y'all done on this. So this is pretty much
What about the rest of us?
the whole staff,
Yeah, you guys were okay.
the whole staff.
Jeez, man, you just hand out attaboys.
I mean, y'all's feelings are so thin.
I appreciate that, and certainly to the communities, Williston, Inglis, those that we've been dealing with about this as well, just getting their feet.
Huh?
He wears his on his sleeve, don't he?
That's why we're long sleeves. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Joyner and a second by Commissioner Rooks. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, 2.
Yes. For the second item, which might take a little bit more time, but I request approval for to adopt Resolution 2015-56, which recognizes the creation of a related incentives guide and application, and also identifies qualified targeted industries, both at the state and local level.
And my only question is, we didn't add any localized qualified targeted industries, did we? I mean,
actually, I mean, in a roundabout way, yeah, because the state has, I think it started around 6 and now it's up to 8 qualified targeted industries. This goes anything from aerospace, aviation, to manufacturing, to life sciences and so forth. What we did, we also, part of the main reason we're here is because of agriculture, for instance. So agriculture was a component, certainly manufacturing, obviously, ecotourism, I mean, you name it. We wanted a more local flair.
Well, I think we kind of left it open-ended that we could.
And that's just it. That's the beautiful thing is when, you know, it gets to the point by the creation of the ordinances and resolutions, we've kind of left that ability to kind of go back and, well, we didn't think about it at the time, but now that we're going through the comp plan updates and so forth, maybe now's the time to address that. So one of the things that we did do, which is reflected in the revised application guide, is we added the component obviously for agriculture. And so what you've got now in the guide is you've got a non-agriculture when it comes to the EDF, which we just approved, the first measure. Now you've got the agriculture component, which keys in on the tangible personal property tax. And so what you've got on page 9 is how the formula would work, excuse me, I can't talk. You've got how the formula would work. So you've got created jobs, and the assessed value for tangible personal property tax equals whatever that jobs refund might be. And it starts from $5,000 and it goes all the way up to an additional $25,000. And just as a reminder, since we've talked about this several times, when we were here the last time, the state offers that $25,000, much like the homestead exemption, they offer $25,000 for TPP. This would be in addition to that, so it basically would be $50,000 maximum possible. Yes, ma'am. So, but of course, they would have to meet criteria. That being the key, yes. All the applicable fees and taxes and so forth would be paid, and then they would factor in if, of course, they're eligible.
Specific local target industries that we had, it was not just agriculture, but we added
Aquaculture, yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commissioners at this time? All right, we will open the floor to public comment, citizen comment. Row 1. Ms. Cannon.
Mr. Chairman, is tourism included in that related incentives guide?
Tourism from a state level is not a targeted industry, and that was one of
this county it would be.
And that's what I was about to continue, so I apologize. Yeah, for the state, it's not, but that's where, when we talk about the local, what we as a board and as a community want to, ecotourism specifically, which, I mean, obviously is tourism, but a very niche group is the ecotourism. That's one of those that we would look to, you know, possibly, depend on the jobs created and everything, you know, approve through an application.
So who is publishing this incentives guide? The state or this county?
That's us. And by us, we, through the blessing of the commission, have created this guide application. I haven't referenced it today because we brought it up before, and I was trying to keep, you know, the time to a minimum. But
And can we amend that guide in the future as
yes,
needed?
it's a very fluid process.
The resolution allows for, actually for the county coordinator to make minor revisions to the guide, as long as he doesn't make substantive changes like to the percentages of the benefits.
We're not painting ourselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the key. We want to make sure that this could evolve because technologies, trends, everything evolves. We don't want this to be, you know, set in stone. So, yeah, that's the beautiful thing.
I had a question. No, we don't have tourism as one of the qualified targeted industries. That isn't in there.
No, tourism is not, but that's one of those that we identify at a given time. Yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman.
Anybody else on row 1? Row 2. Oh, there. Got mine.
The refund or rebate, no, it's paid back at the time they get the incentive, but that is taken out of the county's treasury then, right? So you don't get the benefit of those taxes. But how long do these incentives last? What's the period?
As long as we deem necessary. I mean, there is a maximum it's written in, but we can do
For the
a year.
EDA, yes.
It's a year by year.
Yeah.
You'd have to apply each year.
Yeah, the guide also contains the E-date, as we call it, which is the Economic Development Ad Valorem tax. That's the state statute 196, which gives you up to 10 years. We didn't address that today specifically. We're just talking about the EDF, but the guide has both of those contained in it. And so that you've got state parameters that specifically tell you how long you can give those exemptions for, which is up to 10 years. And we're already in year 1 of passing that referendum.
That's on the one, that was the one that was the referendum that we voted on and passed.
That kind of led to that was the genesis, I guess.
But even that one, you don't have to do the whole 10 years. You can do.
Correct.
Yes.
You can say
Based
3
on the
years,
formula, yep.
depending on what we.
They have to.
Flexibility.
They
have
Yes, similar criteria that we've spelled forth in the EDF they would have to meet. But with that, we're more stuck to what the state tells us to do. So, yep.
Anybody else on row 2? Row 3? Row 4? Back 1? All right, we will now close the citizen comment section. Are there any other questions from the board for Mr. Pieklik at this time? We will now close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion, we adopt resolution number 2015-56.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stevens and a second by Commissioner Rock Meeks. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
I know it was a long journey, but thank you very much, and now the fun part begins of promoting this, so we will go to the next step.
Thank you, David. Thank you, reiterate Mike's comments. Thank you for everybody who worked on this, and most especially thank you to this board. I think this is a very progressive step
It is.
to potential growth of Levy County.
Appreciate it, thank you all.
So, thank you.
Applications go from your office, right?
Yes, sir, and then we'll go from there, we'll make sure that they're in all the appropriate locations, the satellite offices, for lack of a better word.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're on to department reports. Mr. Moody.
Okay, I had one item for you this morning that's in your agenda packet. It was a letter from Mr. Nichols that was hosting the Music Fest as part of the Mud Bog recently. He has written a letter which is in your file asking for some consideration with the final cost to him for coverage from our EMS department. And that is that he is asking that we actually go with the first quote that was given to him in September 17th of $70 an hour, or a total of $910 for the coverage of the event. He's asking for this because the event was actually a flop. He lost a good sum of money. Of course, he admits that a lot of that was faults of his, you know, in determining when this was held and the different factors that went into it. And I talked to him at length, and he had first called, I guess, someone at Bronson, probably Chief Russell, and had got $50 an hour, which is what Chief Russell charges a racetrack when he goes out there. And for the 13 hours, 4 hours Friday night, and 9 hours on Saturday is at $50 an hour, and $650 in our rate. My resolution is $70 an hour. And as things change from his first call, then things change. The scope of the event changed. It went to potentially 24 hours camping overnight, different things like that, which was later withdrawn. But it just was a bad situation. Wasn't well planned out. There was not enough time to really work through this. And I talked to Chief Knowles about this. He feels like that the $910 he can live with too for the time that we put in out there. Mr. Nichols did refer to the sheriff's people pulling out when they saw it was a flop. They had
They've been that not successful.
but they had that flop sounds good. That's exactly what it was. I talked to Commissioner Stevens briefly, and a spectator fundraiser is probably the most difficult. If you're doing a fundraiser and you're selling raffle tickets or you're selling dinners and you pre-sell them and all that, that's one thing. But spectator type events, weather plays into it, competition from other events. It's a difficult pool, even for the most experienced. I told him I'd present the letter and his request, and after talking to him, I feel like that the $910 is a fair amount, in my opinion.
Ms. Cannon.
Mr. Chairman, what was the quote that we gave him that he was supposed to pay?
2,700, 2,900, something like that.
The first amount was the $910 when he initially presented this to the office out there, but then, with the changes that he
Right,
anticipated
that's the
having,
mushroom,
was actually
what did we come?
$5,660.
I see.
And then we reduced it.
Then we reduced it.
We reduced it to what?
Little less than $30,000.
Yeah,
And so how,
David, you remember how much it was? How much was it?
26.
David's looking it up. It's on the clock. Guys,
$70 for that.
2760.
and so how did we arrive at 910?
That was the original amount before we
Oh,
knew
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the,
yeah.
the
Okay. My
scope that it was
apologies.
going to be. That was, remember, we thought we'd just have a paramedic there, not have to actually have a transport unit.
2730.
2730.
How about coming to the difference between 910 and the 2760 and taking half of that, okay? That would be generous.
Duly noted. Ms. Gaither?
If we're trying for incentive to get people to come and everything, why is there such a difference between the $50 an hour and the $70 an hour? Shouldn't we give somebody coming in a break as well as an existing business?
The coverage was
charge the same?
different. The coverage was by far different.
The different level of coverage, you know, with a complete EMS equipped ambulance and those people than just one EMT out there.
So
not
that
to do
chief
it
would
the
have
racetrack.
charged the 70 if he had been requested the same
Our
thing.
rates are 70. Bronson or another city or something, I don't know what their rates are, but in this case, Bronson's rate was $50 an hour. But that was just for the fire truck, first responder kind of thing that they had at the racetrack too, is that correct? That's
Trying to, they ain't transporting nobody if they break the neck.
correct. But anyhow, that's the letter, that's the request.
How is that for around? David, you said the number was 2730?
Yes, sir.
Particularly, especially on top of it, not that that holds up legally, but that the gentleman says that the county treated him so shabbily. Now, I really resent that part.
Where was that at, Miss Cannon? Where was that at?
That
That
the
the
county
county treated
treated
him
him
so bad.
shabbily, it was in one of the newspapers.
I can't believe it.
The,
I'm sorry?
the difference between the proposed amount and the amount that we are charging was actually $1,820, which if you divide that in two is $910. So that would bring it, 1820 is my math, but, it's really up to the board here, something's better than nothing, kind of where I'm at.
Never mind, tell you, just my opinion of it, the man tried to bring revenue to the county, he lost. Just like me planting a crop, if I have a dry season, I'll lose.
Right.
He lost. If we can help him, I think we should help him.
Right.
And you know, Mike, I wouldn't have a problem with that, except for the point. Is this gentleman went out of his way to stop payment on the check before anything took place, and then now wants to come back and say, I wanna settle with you for a dollar amount on a quote that he didn't even give the specific information from when he went to the Department of Public Safety and asked the question. And that's where I'm hung with this. Nothing was ever, everything was always after the fact with this process that he went through. He got a quote originally, and they sent it to him, and then from that point on, everything started changing. All the way through there. and then stop payment on the checks. And then criticize this county and this board for that person's own failure to promote an event and stop payment. And now come back and say, well, I'll give you $910 for all the slander that he put in the paper, or what was in the paper reported in Mr. Whip.
I don't know, I didn't.
So, anyway, I'm just going strictly on what I was told, but like I told y'all, I don't waste my money on those papers. But if all of that is true, that's what Mr. Whip put in the paper, you know, I'm really not looking to bend right on this. I mean, there was an opportunity to come back and say, hey guys, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Whips, that, you know, this did not turn out well. Can we come to some kind of different resolution here? And I'd have said, sure, what do you want us to do? But with the way this thing went, I can't do it. That's just me, but there's one more other y'all up here.
And I can only say that he was somewhat apologetic about the whole event, and his attitude had changed some from what we read, I guess, and emails that I witnessed and saw. But his letter, I mean, I'm just presenting his letter for him, and he did. And going back, he did say, I will commend the sheriff's department for realizing on both days that the need for 4 officers was not necessary. And over the 2 days, 3 of them left early to help our organization save some money. So I think it was, you know, something in progress. I think Friday night they had 20-something people. All day Saturday, 9 hours, they had less than 300, according to his reports. So,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lippman had his hand.
What level of service did we actually provide to him? Was it the full 5,000? Or, you know, I mean, what was our cost, I guess, in the services that we did provide, seeing the event unfold as it did?
I don't have that number. I do have, you know, we passed the resolution, the board did, years ago.
Actually, it was last year, but we revised it.
We revised it.
We passed the resolution in 2009 and revised it in September of last year, just before Commissioner Meeks and Commissioner Whips came back on board.
That there was a rate that we, so it was universal, so there wasn't,
Right.
you know, well, we're gonna charge this guy this much, we're gonna charge this group this much. It was
But I mean, my question wasn't, I wasn't questioning the rate.
I know,
But
I don't know what
I
the
mean,
numbers
did we
did.
have one paramedic unit on scene?
We had
Did
one
we have X
transport
number
unit.
of people on scene, you know, so forth and so on?
There was one
And what
transport,
was
one
that
supervisor,
cost to
or
the
one,
county?
And
one
you know,
non-transport.
and the way that it was set up, Mr. Lippman, if I'm remembering correctly, is the cost that was put out there was what this gentleman had anticipated the number of hours of operation to be.
And the scope of the event.
Correct. Right. And at the end of it, when the gentleman was standing at the podium 2 weeks ago, it was indicated that we're gonna provide this level of service to you and to this event. If we should have to leave from there, then we will adjust those hours back off of that. And we was in the process of doing that. Right on up, we found out that this gentleman had stopped paying on the check, and they probably never completed that list in there. To get to the question that you asked, how much do we actually have tied up in it?
Right. I mean, I think that would be the number that we.
We have transport, do we have a transport unit there both days for the event?
Mr. We don't wanna go that, because we were there, you don't wanna do that one. This is what Mr. Littman's suggestion is.
What Pastor say?
Miss Lily?
Does this $910, does that cover our cost for that day?
I don't know, I'm never going there.
No,
What was our cost?
with the discussions going back and forth, I don't have that exact number, Ms. Brooks.
what did Mr. Noel say when he was at the back of the room, please?
We don't wanna know what the number is.
Oh, yes, we do.
It's probably more than even the 2,700.
Lord help.
And this, what was your number? We had a floating starting time that varied from his marketing material to what he had actually told us up here. Marketing material times never changed. My concern was that we'd have an influx of people there before we already had our units on the site. So we actually staffed it where we should have been there 13 hours. We were actually there 17.5 hours. Second day, we were there, supposed to be there 13 hours, we were there 17 hours. But we went above and beyond, because my concern was the marketing material that had gone out to the public didn't reflect the actual times that he changed on his material. So I felt that the due diligence of our service to make sure we're providing coverage to the people that might be out there during this event if it were to escalate or cascade prior to us having the corrected times. We also had events going on in Cedar Key that day as well, and it was a very busy weekend for us. So we want to make sure we have the staffing appropriate for that event. So I don't have the exact dollar amount, I can figure that out pretty quickly though, for the actual hours we were there, but we only contracted, he only paid the contracted amount that we agreed to of the 13 hours for both days. And that goes back to the spectator thing. You never know what's really gonna turn out, because most of the times the tickets are not pre-sold, so you don't know if you're gonna have, a total sellout, or if you're gonna above that, or if you're gonna have what happened.
So
Now, the other thing, go ahead.
The $2,730 that Chief Knowles quoted was the contracted amount of 13 hours each day? Okay, so if we were there above and beyond that, as a precaution, perhaps we would have some we could argue that we would have some flexibility that was discretionary on our part. But it still seems to me like that $2,730 as the contracted amount is what's really in question here. And he's saying, well, I'll pay you essentially a third of that. That to me would be what the board would be wrestling with is, do we hold him to the full contracted amount, which we all agreed upon, understanding that we exercised some discretion, which put personnel there longer than the contracted time, versus him saying, well, I'll just do the 9-10. That to me is really the question that I think you're wrestling with.
And I agree with you, Mr. Whitman. And had some of this other stuff not entered into the newspaper, and Mr. Whitman can tell you whether it was actually true or not as to what was actually said, is I don't mind having a person, but there again, I really would have hoped he wouldn't have canceled stop payment on the check prior to anything taking place. But I'm sure this board is more than willing to sit down and be very fair.
I would agree.
Mr. Witt?
I wanted to ask, originally he had planned for 24-hour camping both days. What was the charge gonna be for that? If he had had 24-hour camping?
We never provided him a price for that.
He said you did. He said you were gonna charge $14,400 is what he told
We
me.
never gave him a price on that, sir.
Well, $70 an hour, I don't know what it would work out to. It'd be
All right.
Well, there's one other question I wanted to ask. Has anybody else ever been charged these kinds of numbers for an event?
Well, this is the standard fees that we adopted by resolution. However, the special events as we used to know them have gone away. You don't have to get a permit for a special event any longer. But when we adopted this resolution back in '09, we did require permits for special events, whether it's a trail ride at Goethe or whether it's something else. That has gone away. There are no more special event permits, except if it's tied to a music fest. And we did have a music fest proposed in East Williston some time ago, and we stopped that before it ever occurred. So this really, I think, in my opinion, is the first time that we've had this situation. Now, taking into consideration that we do have a document of a stop payment check, that may be enforceable in a court of law to try to go back and either recoup that amount or get another amount. The other thing, this gentleman is not the property owner, so Miss Young may become the focus of the collection on this. That's why I'm considering all of this and presenting the letter. I didn't write the letter, the gentleman did. But after talking to him, I just felt like
Ms. Cannon?
this might be a better way out.
Mr. Chairman, would that permit fee be in addition to those fees? So he already got the breaks in, I mean, by our regulations. Thank you.
Ms. Lou?
Just clarify something for me. He stopped payment on the check before the event occurred or after?
After.
Okay.
Once he realized that it was a not successful event, not a flop as has been referred to by others. All I will say is this, is he sent an email that was forwarded to all of us, and in his email he blasted the county. Basically, the same sort of language or message that was conveyed by one of the local newspapers. Maybe not quite as harsh, but still very critical of us, of the public safety. But in that email or subsequent email, he also criticized the board of county commissioners and the town of Bronson, the town council, for not coming out and supporting his event. And that's what I took issue with. You can be critical of me all you want for my decisions I make. Help yourself. But don't jump on me for not supporting your event. Especially considering the weekend of his event, there was numerous other events that went on, including high school football games that pitted Bronson against Williston, and Chiefland had a home game against, I think, Newberry that night. So you lost a large percentage of your crowd there. I explained that to him. I also explained that it was the weekend of the Seafood Festival, which distracts a lot of folks, and there was a Haven Hospice event on Saturday night that people had already purchased tickets and were committed to. So don't be critical of your local leaders because they didn't come out to your music fest. And he conceded that was probably ill-advised and ill-written. And in our discussion, you know, I asked him about his marketing plan and did he market this outside of Levy County, because you know, I basically told him point blank, if you would have contacted myself or anybody else who was involved with the community, they could have told you that October is a terrible time to do anything because there are so many events that are already scheduled. You know, if you really want to do something, you would do it in probably February, because you're coming out of the winter, people are looking for something to do, spring is coming, you know, anyway. He brought up the issue of the stop payment check, and I said, I don't even want to talk about that. It's a legal issue. Don't even want to discuss it. Well, you know, and he said, well, what could I do? And I said, well, you could always appeal to the board for a reduction, but that's totally up to you. I said, but I'm not going to discuss with you the legality of the stop check. I sit here at on this dais and I look at our options. We can take his offer of $910 and write it off as a lesson learned, or we can pursue him in court and try to get a judgment or settlement against him, of which he may or may not ever pay. Or we can go after the third party, which is the landowner, who just merely entered into an agreement to lease her property for the weekend to this guy. And now we're going to drag another entity, a business owner, if you will, into the fray that may or may not be totally absolved of any guilt. You know, I'm certainly not going to be held hostage by what's written in the newspaper.
And what is number 4? It was only 3 so far.
Number 4, something's better than nothing. Something's better than nothing.
Okay.
And now I don't know if this is true or not. This is what the man told me on the phone. Was whenever he first started planning this event, he was informed he didn't even need a permit. because Levy County didn't have special event permits, and it was later on in the process that it was disclosed that, oh, this is a music fest, you do have to have permits, and you do have to have,
correct.
you do have to have law enforcement, you do have to have public safety, you do have to have all these things. Whenever that man stood before us on that Tuesday, his concert was coming on Friday. His hands were tied, figuratively. He could have, and we can all point fingers and say, you know, whatever. He could have at that point said, you know what, I'm out, I'm done, I'll take my whipping and go home. But he forged on, and had the guy made $1 million, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But the fact of the matter is he lost a considerable amount of money, according to his statement.
Well, the other vendor was Williston Animal Group, who was to be the benefactor of the profits of this. So his heart was in the right place as far as having a benefactor.
You know, did the guy get mad and say some things to the media that he probably shouldn't have said? Definitely. Did he write a nasty email that he shouldn't have wrote on Sunday morning? Definitely. Did he schedule an event in October whenever he shouldn't have scheduled it? Definitely. But it's now up to this board to decide, do we take the $910 and accept it as
less than
something? Or do we say, nope, we're going to hold his feet to the fire for the whole amount and hope that we collect it, put a burden on Miss Annie to pursue it, go through the whole legal system? I mean, I'm of the opinion we forgive people. I got you, Mr. Gates. We forgive people, and I know it's apples and oranges, but we've had 3 or 4 come before us with these foreclosures, and we're taking way less than what we're due, you know, because something's better than nothing. You know, we take the 910 and we move on. That's our option, or we pursue. We take him to court. I mean, that's where we're at.
A motion for you to accept the 910. I'll make a motion to accept the 910. Go ahead.
Like old Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Let's fold and take the 910.
Is that a second?
That's my motion.
Brock already had a motion. You got a second. Mr. Gaither, do you have something you want to add before we?
Wouldn't it cost us more to try to collect that little bit than it would to just take what he's offered and get it?
Yes, sir. But it is a lesson learned next time when it comes before this board. Definitely. My fault.
People will be paid 30 days in advance. So you can't stop paying on the check. We already had that thing cashed. Yes, sir, Mr. Grant.
Mr. Chairman, what kind of precedent are you setting if you take $910?
We're setting the precedent that we don't want to fight. We will not be painted in, as long as I'm on this board, we will not find ourselves in this situation again.
That's what I just
Fees will be
started to say.
paid in advance. Things will be handled differently. You know, not an excuse by no means, but this, like Mr. Freddie did say, this is the first one of these that we've had since we've done away with our special events permit and only had the Music Fest permit applicable. You know, again, I'm a firm believer something's better than nothing. A bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. And we can chase him for the 27 and never see a thing.
Am I interpreting that it's better for us to lose, as a county, to lose money on this event than it is for him to lose money on this event?
Well, according to his letter, he lost $40,000. So,
Please consider.
For trying to raise money for a charitable organization.
Mr.
Mr. Sheffield.
Just curious, and when it comes to cost, when they do an event like that, do we take an extra unit and pay them overtime or something?
We didn't pay him overtime, but we took an extra unit, yes.
Okay, it wasn't a unit that we just moved from a station
No,
out there.
it was his own unit, so that we would not run into the issue of having to move that unit if we ran out of units, which happens occasionally.
But we probably did have overtime that day because we had Cedar Key, we had that, we had a multitude of things going all day long, so. Did it tie up some resources that we could have had somewhere else? Yeah, it probably was a cost there. We're actually taking up.
We don't shut down public comment any other
Just
time.
looking at fairness all around and trying to.
I appreciate your comments. All the questions.
Why didn't we call for a motion or a second?
there anybody else? Ms. Tony?
You know, as one who has staged quite a few events in this county, and on behalf of every other community group and organization in this county that has had events, successful events, and we have them all the time. Is this gentleman local, or did he come from out of the area?
He lives in Levy County.
Out of the area.
No, he lives in Levy County.
He lives in Levy County.
address.
Yeah, I think he's new to the area.
I hate hearing this, because for all of us who plan properly, who budget our money, who, you know, do all the things that we're supposed to do, we have one individual, and yes, I think it's a shame that the group that was supposed to benefit from this will not benefit from it.
That's right.
Okay? The Williston Animal Group. But I think you're setting a precedent here that's going to be a little tough to defend down the road.
I think we're chalking this up as a lesson learned. So we have a motion and a second. If there is no further discussion from this board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
How'd you vote, Rob? Aye. I'm an aye. 3-2. Thank you.
Who are the no votes?
Commissioner Stevens and Commissioner Rooks. Mr. Dean. All that time you couldn't get your book together, man? Come on, man.
Man, I won't follow Mr. Freddie again if I can help it there. Okay, what I'd like to present to you here today is to proclaim this is World Pancreatic Cancer Day. We have a proclamation here that I'd like to read to you about that and get the chairman's signature. It says, a proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners, Levy County, Florida, proclaiming November the 13th, 2015 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day. Whereas in 2015, an estimated 48,960 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 40,560 will die from this disease. And whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and is the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States, is projected to become the second by 2020. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in single digits at just 7%. And whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer presents themselves, it is generally in the late stages. And 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of the diagnosis, while 93% of the pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas approximately 2,980 deaths will occur in Florida in 2015, and whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related deaths in men and women across the world, and whereas there will be an estimated 367,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed globally in 2015, and whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Levy County are enhanced as a direct result of an increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into the early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Therefore, be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Levy County, Florida, that the 13th day of November 2015 is designated in Levy County as World Pancreatic Cancer Day.
Motion to approve by Ms. Rooks. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shinley.
Good morning. Got 3 relatively easy agenda items. Your first item is a motion from staff to the board to approve a deferred payment loan agreement for Jennifer Fugate. It's PA 529 for the existing unit in Williston, Florida, and this is for SHIP down payment assistance. Just wanted to bring your attention due to some comments and such. Like if you look at the deferred payment loan agreement on number 5, these are kind of a newer deferred payment loan agreement. The ones that came to you like at the last meeting were from years before, but the board has approved in the LHAP that they're not, if somebody violates the contract, the whole amount is due. It's not a portion of the amount, so just, I wanted to bring it to your attention just so you knew that. So that one that came before you last, earlier in the month was one from an older one, so yeah. So now you're gonna be getting, it was changed, so you're going to be getting all the money it's violated, so bring it to your attention, so. If you have any questions, I'm glad to try and answer.
I hear a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Stevens, a second by Commissioner Joyner. All in favor, or is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B on your agenda, this is from your planning department. It's staff requests the a motion to authorize the chair's signature on the attached letter. It's called a notice of intent to amend the Levy County comprehensive plan. Since the last time the plan was updated in 2008, there's been requirements changed in the statute that we have to formally notify the Department of Economic Opportunity on its finding of whether or not we intend to update the comp plan. So it's not really required, but the letter is to state whether you intend to or not intend. And I went ahead and put a sample in there for your review. We are pretty much have to update it because we haven't made any updates since 2008 and the laws have changed. So staff would recommend that we do transmit this letter to the state and recommend that we are going to amend the comp plan. And
it's cold.
And once the letter does go to the state, it's due December 1st, then we have exactly a year to transmit the year-based amendments to the state for adoption.
And we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, hopefully that's my job. So
just make sure.
Yeah, yes. Fast and furious.
Ms. Cannon.
I made it just in time. What amendments are we talking about?
Mr. Chair, these are changes to the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan due to legislative changes that have occurred since 2008 up until now. So we're going to bring the plan in compliance with the current laws.
And what legislative changes are we talking about, Shanley?
Well, there are a lot. I'm going to be bringing them in front of the board. I'm going to be bringing some questions for the board to answer, but there's things that, some major highlights would be like changes in concurrency. Not all the levels of service that you all have adopted, like for parks and transportation, public schools, not all of them are required anymore. And you have the option of continuing that or not. And that's the kind of questions I'll be bringing to you all, so I know which direction to go when we're amending the policies and the comp plan. So that helps.
Ms. Cannon Shinley will gladly answer all your questions if you call the office or stop by and see her.
Yeah, come by and see us.
I appreciate that, and I could, under those circumstances, indeed recommend that the board approve the request.
Thank you. Anybody else? It's the pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stevens, a second by Commissioner Joyner. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item under planning is in your packet is it's an agreement, a vendor agreement with Ship Homes. When you go into doing rehabilitation, you have to do a lead-based paint sample of the home to make sure there's no lead-based paint issues and contamination. Those are on homes that are older than, from 1978 and older. The former person who was doing it decided he didn't want to do it anymore, so he's out. And
who was doing it?
Russell Allen, I believe was his name. And but now we had, I guess it had to go through some legal review because there were some insurance issues, and so the staff is requesting the board approve and authorize the chairman's signature to proceed with this vendor agreement that's in your packet. And it's the Central Florida Community Action Agency, and they're the ones, and they already do that in Levy County locally anyways for their weatherization, because they do those types of updates to homes. But we're just gonna propose using them also for shed houses, so. And that, I believe the attorney's office has reviewed the content of the, yes, and
We
signed
don't
off
make
on
money
it.
to them every year too, correct?
Excuse me?
We give them money every year.
Yeah, I think it's like a few thousand for other things.
But Sheila, going back to B
Yes.
and C,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing in there that says we don't have to do anything else but a septic tank, right?
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to do anything else.
Say that word, it's like
We don't have to-
Beetlejuice.
we don't have to do that enough.
Say it 2 more times, it'll show up. What's the pleasure of the board on item C?
I'll make a motion as presented.
A motion by Commissioner Meeks, second by Commissioner Stevens. I'm just gonna comment that I grew up in a house with lead paint, there's obviously nothing wrong with me.
Federal requirements.
Really ask for public comment?
I was gonna say, you wanna have public comment on that? I'll be patient for that one.
Sort of following up on what Mike said, what if they do find lead-based paint? Then what are we?
They have to remediate and remove it, and it's just for the area of the home that the actual rehab's gonna occur on. Like if they're gonna do something in the kitchen and the cabinets, then it would just change and remediate that and remove it and repaint it in that area. It's not for the whole house.
Pretty much.
Mr. Grant?
Mr. Chairman, your lead-based paint, don't make that statement, we saw that tie.
Hey, it's moving, isn't it?
This is for Clemson week.
Yeah, it's a good story, you stick to it.
That's Clemson, who else can I get? The Bronson Eagles? Actually, if you want to know the story about this tie, I'll tell you real quick. I know we're in the middle of something else, but I wanted to be Al Golden for Halloween because, you know, you just got fired and I really felt bad about it because, you know, I really like Miami, not very much. And my wife says, you paid all the money for a stupid tie, you will never wear it again. Well, I'm wearing it today. I wear it twice in a week. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion that's relevant to the issue? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Shinley.
Morning, Commissioners. Chairman, I have one item on today's agenda to present. Request approval on, requesting the board's approval and the chairman's signature for the Senior Community Services Employment Program. This is an Experience Works program. It's a federally funded program. There's only one cost outtake to the county, and that would be for drug testing of the applicants that they bring to our location, because that is a requirement. It is a volunteer program. It's for 55 and older, and it's a volunteer work program, and accepting us as a host agency.
What kind of tasks will these folks be performing, David?
What we're gonna use these folks for is logistical support, ground maintenance at our facilities. They'll be assigned to somebody, they will not be by themselves. Painting, ground maintenance, logistical help, facility maintenance type help as well.
Not riding on ambulance.
And this is senior citizen,
55 and older, sir.
can I run the siren?
Yes, sir.
You can't be on the ambulance.
We'll put you on the
Fire
training,
truck?
we'll put you on the training truck.
Me and you. Me and you.
Do I hear a motion? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I didn't know that was a formal motion. I thought that was just an offer to ride on the truck. So, all right, we have a motion by Commissioner Joyner, second by Commissioner Rooks. Is there any further discussion?
Will these all be volunteers? I know in some other states they're actually paid a minimum wage.
They will be paid by the federal government.
And they consider it a volunteer program.
But they do
We do
receive
not pay them.
We do not.
We don't.
No.
No.
It works very well. We had one at the, chamber that worked for a while. She was wonderful, and I can currently have one in Yankeetown Town Hall.
Very
good.
And
is working to get one back.
And give credit to Mayor Dren, Mayor, she is the one that put us onto the program, so thank you, Mayor. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your help.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
This used to be known as green.
Green thumb, yes.
All right, road department, we've tabled that to the next meeting. So we've arrived at our second public comment section. Anybody has anything they'd like to bring forth for public comment? Mr. Gaither.
Yes, this is more of information than a statement, I guess. I just want to tell that, this coming Friday at 10 o'clock at Haven Hospice, they having a veterans thing that some of the representatives, federal government or representatives like Rubio's office and all those are gonna be present. But the main thing that I want to say is that Representative Dennis Baxter is gonna be there to present Honey her 4th medal that she has won as the #2 service dog in the nation.
Good deal. Good deal. Very good. Where is I had a time and everything for that.
She's still sleeping.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Witt.
You pulled an agenda, Mr. Chairman, you pulled an agenda item off last week regarding David Knowles' request to purchase $240,000 in trucks.
2 weeks ago.
Was that, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. Was that, has anything else been done about that?
One of the key components, the chief mechanic, head mechanic out at the road department, there's been a request to have him here to help explain the difference between the two chassis and why we're going with the one we're going with. He was not available today either, so that's why it was not put back on the agenda for this week.
So none of those vehicles have been purchased yet?
No, sir. They come from us, man.
Mr. Chairman, I just want the board to know that when I made my comments regarding Mr. Nichols and his $910 offer, I didn't realize the man had stopped payment on his check.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just want to let you know there's a lot going on in the English Yankeetown area this weekend, basically starting Thursday through Sunday. There's going to be at least 60 to 100 visitors coming for the Hidden Coast Paddlers event, and a lot of activities going to be going on in town. We're hoping to bring a lot of money into the community. Yeah, absolutely. We're not paying.
All right. Anybody else for public comment? All right. Moving on. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Joyner.
Oh, very successful weekend. All the commissioners, I enjoyed cooking with all of y'all. We had a big group of people in all 3 places. And if somebody in the crowd can tell me when the Veterans Day Parade in Chiefs will near.
November the 11th.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, November the 12th.
4 p.m.
At 4 o'clock.
November the 12th?
12th at 4 o'clock.
You contact Chief Douglas, he's the point of contact.
493-6777.
Nice and cool at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I have nothing to.
Amen.
That's all I have. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Chief Engineer to the 12th.
Commissioner Rook. Commissioner Stevens.
Yes. I would hope that everybody would come to Williston for their Veterans Day event. It's going to be at Heritage Park in front of the Ivy House at 6:30 on the 10th, which is next Tuesday, if I remember right. And if I'm understanding correctly, Dennis Baxley is going to be the guest speaker.
That guy was running for office.
Right, is he a veteran?
You say 6:30 then?
6:30 on the 10th. Next Tuesday.
Is Mr. Bexley a veteran?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe he is, yes.
Yes, he is.
Good for him.
Anything else? Commissioner Meeks. How was your hunt trip?
successful.
Of course, I've got a couple of items.
No way.
Yeah. An update from my trip out to Raleigh to look at the sidewalk situation at the Vision Christian Academy. Took the consultant, we looked at it. What we've come up with so far is that, you know, he has contacted the FDOT District 2 Bike and Pedestrian Coordinator, the State Coordinator for LAP, potential funding for Safe Routes to Schools. Those are two state-funded programs that we could utilize, hopefully, to do this project. He's waiting to see if it is, if it fits into the parameters on the bike and pedestrian alternative routes, alternative modes of transportation. And speaking to my road superintendent, Mr. Bruce Greenlee, this morning, Bruce informed me that he had spoken to Mr. Barney Bennett, who took Jordan Green's place. He's kind of the head man at the district here in Lake City, and he felt that if we removed the crossing of the intersection at State Road 41, that we'd have a much better opportunity to be funded through Safe Routes to School. So there are two alternatives on the table that we are currently working on to handle the situation at Raleigh. In the meantime, I ask anybody who travels in that area, please obey the speed limit. Please be on the lookout for the children and the citizens that are walking, maybe walking on the edge of the road. Pastor Carney, you have anything you'd like to add or any questions?
I guess one thing I can add is, we appreciate you coming out and taking the time to look and see, what our concerns is. But I also like to add, the school church just happened to be in the area where it is. It wasn't our intentions from the very beginning for it to come to this. But there are other things involved, like the voting, the park area, even though the school uses it, but it's open to the public. And so that sidewalk is going to be used more than just for school purposes. It's going to be used for other people in the community to come out and access what's there for the public.
And I think that's why the alternative travel is going to be the better option, maybe the faster option to get it done.
And there's another, I know sometimes we talk about finances and monies and how the community or how the state, I don't know a whole lot into what I'm going to mention about, but I do know because of the school, there are thousands of dollars coming to our area because of the school. I don't know how that works for how the county benefits from that. The money's coming in through salaries and all that. I don't know, y'all. That's something else. But I know there are thousands of dollars that comes in to that area because of the school being there. And I think that does have some kind of bearing on income.
Economic impact.
In our area. So that's another angle I guess we can kind of look at. I think right now it's close to $400,000 come through that area. And I believe it's impacting some kind of way that our county has actually benefiting something from that.
Yes,
I just like to mention that also. We're not just sitting there trying to sort like a sponge when they solve some things, but I think it's actually it's putting back into our county also because of the school.
Thank you. Ms. Cannon.
Mr. Chairman, the consultant you went to the site was at Lee Mills?
No, ma'am, that's the engineer.
Okay. And what about the sidewalk for Bonson High School? By the way, Eddie, did you bring that before FDOT by any chance?
We are currently in the process of trying to receive our LAP certification. It's been a more arduous process than we anticipated it being, but that's what's going to make us eligible for some federal funding, so we can get some other projects done, and hopefully that's a way we can kind of expedite the process instead of waiting on the Safe Routes to School program from the state. If we can tap into some of this federal money that may be available, we can get that project done sooner rather than later.
Did I hear you say LEP certification?
Yes, ma'am.
LAP?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that stand
I
for?
have no idea, Miss Annie.
I think it might be limited access participation, something.
It's
It's a Title VI, you have to comply with Title VI, which is the non-discrimination policies, and
Federal
you have to have
requirement.
people, all your contractors, all that have to be lab certified, they have to be familiar with those.
So that,
Thank you, and
Bruce had a comment over there.
yes, Bruce.
I was just gonna ask if am I instructed to take that component out and go ahead and resubmit that application, or do I have to wait?
Yes. I say yes. I guess I can't really unilaterally tell you that. What is the consensus of the board? I think we should reapply for the Safe Routes to School program funding with the removal of the crossing of State Road 41.
That would be fine, but it was my understanding that that program was, that project was still gonna be entered into that and try to be funded the next time it became available to be funded.
Well, what he told me on the telephone, when I talked to him on the phone, he said, the deal breaker is the crossing at 41.
Okay.
He said, if it's something that the county does wanna see action, then you resubmit it and take that component out of the petition, out of the application, and I'll take another look for you. So that was kind of the conversation I had with him on the telephone. So, I mean, it's gonna eliminate, the connection on the other side of 41, but you got the entire Raleigh area that you may be able to still actually kind of interconnect with sidewalk, but it would take much for me to go ahead and resubmit it. I could probably have it resubmitted in a couple of days, but that's just up to the board.
Yes, up. I'd say take it out, resubmit it, let's do get the sidewalk put in quick as we can.
I'll resubmit it.
All right, we got 3 to resubmit it. Anybody else? Danny, you on board to resubmit it?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Rhodes? All right. Please resubmit it, Bruce. I attended the North Florida Regional Planning Council meeting on the 22nd. Really thought that was going to be the first official meeting for Levy County with the new planning council, but unfortunately it was not. We are not an official member yet, not a full member. October.
Next year?
If you let me finish, gosh, Lee.
Said you're not.
You're like my wife, man. I'm getting to the story here. It's my picture, let me paint it.
Commissioner, I'll remind you, this is streaming live to the internet, and there will be a video on YouTube of you saying this about your wife.
She doesn't know how to work it. The long story short is there was a challenge presented whenever I attended the meeting in June, and they elected to allow us in, which they have to let us in. I don't even understand why they had to vote on it. There was a challenge made by the city of Gainesville about the number of voting delegates, the way they were going to redo it. Everybody was going to get the same amount, and Gainesville challenged it, and Alachua County sided with them, along with, well, I guess that was only 2 who challenged their ruling. So they revisited it and had to have a revote. And so they didn't do that until the September meeting. So the way it stands now, Marion County has 3 representatives, the city of Gainesville has 3 representatives, and Alachua County has 3 representatives at the planning council that are seated delegates. Each other member county only has 1. Now, if a city chooses to join and pay the dues, such as I'll use the town of Bronson for example, and they felt it necessary to pay the 15 cents per capita to join, then they would have a seat at the table also. So, that's how they come to the number that there's 13 counties, and that's how they get to their number of like 24, 25 delegates, because there's cities who are members. High Springs a member, obviously Gainesville's a member. Long story short, they had to bring the new language and the new agreement to be ratified by all the member counties, and we need 18 of 24 to agree to it. And preliminarily, everybody has agreed to it, but it has to come before each governing body and be adopted. So, for instance, it has to go to Gilchrist County and Marion County and, well, not Marion County, but Gilchrist, all the other member counties, in addition to the cities. Once we get our 18, then we are legal. We will have a vote. I sat through a meeting and couldn't vote. It's kind of disappointing. So hopefully that will be done by January. In the meantime, we still have all the rights and privileges of a member. We just can't vote on the issues. They are currently helping Shinley with some stuff. They're working on are they helping you with something? Anyway,
Emergency management.
They're helping emergency management. I know they're overseeing our transportation disadvantage program. I mean, we're basically getting to be members for free. I just don't get to talk or vote. So we can kind of keep that going if it was up to y'all. I mean, I don't mind, but I'm more upset that it's free. I mean, I like that. I'd like to keep it that way. But I talk to people while I'm there. Talk about all kinds of stuff. I had a very informative presentation by Tom Keegler from the Swan River Rural Management District, talking about water supply and funding opportunities, many opportunities for the counties and the cities to take advantage of. The other thing that came out that was very important is there will be a transportation summit January 26, 2016 at Lake City at the DOT office, and all the rural counties will come to one, and all the urban counties in the district will go on Thursday. Ours is on Tuesday, and look forward to attending that, and hopefully Bruce and anybody else who is involved with any modes of transportation, planning, anything will be in attendance. So that's that.
What's the date again, please?
January 26th, 2016 at 8 a.m. I believe. I have a contact number for Jamie Driggers, 386-758-3722. If you want to call and register. Ms. Cannon.
Mr. Chairman, if I recall that correctly, the Levy County was, by legislative act, forced to become a member of the North Florida Planning Council.
Yes, ma'am.
And now they deprive us, the county, of a vote. You are hearing?
Well, they have to. Yes, it's in their bylaws. They had to change their bylaws, because whenever they accepted Marion County in,
right,
Marion County would have brought like 40 delegates to the table. They would have been too many people to manage. So they had to cut the way counties were represented and amend that language. And in order to do that, all the members had to accept that. So that's why we're still being served by the Planning Council. We just don't have a vote right now.
And you said that the Planning Council had certain counties as members of?
No, ma'am. There's 23. If my memory serves me correct from what Mr. Coon told me, whenever this is ratified, there will be 23 delegates.
Okay.
With 3 from Alachua County, 3 from Gainesville, and 3 from.
Understand.
And the remaining will be made up of the county, member counties, the other member counties, and the cities that pay.
So how many member counties?
13.
And those 13 have how many votes?
All have 1 apiece, except for Alachua and Marion have 3 apiece.
This is what I mean. So if we wanted 3 votes like they do,
We'd have to have more than 100,000 people. We'd have to have 60,000 people move in
that's
tomorrow.
all I wanted to know.
Or we could get 3 cities to pay their dues, and we'd have 4 votes. But then we'd have to break the sunshine law and talk about things, and we're not going to get into all that. So, moving on. They already talked about this weekend the Hidden Coast Paddling Festival in English and Yankeetown. November 7th, we already talked about the Veterans Day Parade. November 21st and 22nd, English and Yankeetown are having their Seafood and Art Festival and Quilt Show. And on November 21st, Two Hog Hammock, Aquatic Dream in Williston from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. November 27th and 29th, the first weekend of the Kirby Farms event, the weekend of the Christmas Express. And November 27th, the Cedar Key will have their annual tree lighting for their Christmas tree in town. And finally, the Trunk or Treats event that was held in Bronson. It's a huge success. I was told last night over 1,000 kids participated. There were many participants from the businesses in town as well as some elected officials from town. It was a really good event, and I commend the town of Bronson for continuing to keep that going and doing a very good job with it. So, that's all I have. Do I hear a motion to pay the bills?
Motion to pay the bills as presented.
Do I hear a second? You got a second?
I need to add one thing into that for finance. There is one expenditure on there to Highland Tractor in the amount of $9,244.01. That was an emergency purchase for a motor grader that had overheating problems. It went to Highland to be tore down and found the problem. Had a bad hydraulic pump that had been rebuilt 3 times, so we said we need to get it back in operation. So that's for the record.
Y'all's motion still good with that added information?
Yep. Yeah, I am.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries.
Wonder if that's the same grader that had the transmission problems.
No.
Nope.
All right, we have no minutes. The impact fee workshop has been postponed until the 8th due to the fact that the bad weather in Texas kept Mr. Jim Austin, Texas Duncan from being here.
And I just got email confirmation from both Heather Encinoso and Mr. Jim Duncan that the 8th is working, so December the 8th at 11 a.m.
All right. So if anybody has nothing else, they should come before us.
See, it's my turn now. I guess y'all noticed the postings around the courthouse that the clerk's office will now be going to 8:30 to 4:30. So the entire courthouse, the property appraiser, the tax collector, and the clerk's hours are now 8:30 to 4:30. Our office will still be open at our regular hours. So, but I think access past the bailiffs will probably be till 8:30, so people are not coming up and down the halls. As far as I'm at. That's just a point of information.
From 8:30. All right, thank you, Mr. Freddie. Anybody else have anything to come before this board? Seeing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. Pamela, you see how we have fun up here? It's not all. All right.